measuring the ROI of the event at the end, it might cost you a fortune. And as a small business, that could be quite a hefty price tag for the event that you're looking to hold. But if the outcome is to get 3 clients at X amount and their lifetime value is whatever, once you do that math, then you can work out whether or not it is actually worthwhile putting on the event, or whether you need to look at a different avenue.
Mm-hmm. So welcome to the Business Behind Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and we're having another conversation today to help your business grow and thrive in some challenging times, but hopefully we can give you some tips and advice to help you surge through the hard times and grow your business. And today we are looking at this whole idea of running events as part of your business growth strategy. Now, a lot of people view events as something that's quite a powerful way of getting out and marketing. So whether it's launching a new product, going to an exhibition or a trade show, running a seminar or a workshop with clients or prospects, so many different types of events, and they can be very useful for growing your business and promoting your business. But so many times when you run an event, you do all the promotion, you hit record, you're about to start, and you have the sound of crickets. Nobody knows about it. Nobody's there. And that's not a great feeling. So we want to make sure that when we do run our events, we are getting the responses we need. We're getting the attendees that we are seeking, that the event that we are running actually delivers the outcomes in terms of promoting our business and growing our business. Doesn't cost too much, because a lot of times the cost gets away from us. And we spend so much time preparing the event that some of the value is lost. So how do we change that, and how do we get value from running our events? So now, just before we talk to our guest today, our expert interviewee, just some key statistics on running events, because if you're thinking that it doesn't apply, there is so much actually going on. Now, these statistics are from 2019, so they're all pre-COVID, but they're still very relevant. We're seeing a bit of a resurgence here. So the Business Events Council report on the value of business events in Australia in 2019. 43.7 million people attended business events in 2019. Now, that's a lot of people. And there were 484,000 business events. And that includes meetings, conventions, exhibitions, incentives. And I suspect that doesn't include a lot of the smaller events that a lot of individual businesses run with their customers. So the one-to-one trainings or the group sessions, the webinars. But that's a lot of events, 484,000. And estimated to have cost $35.7 billion. So that's a lot of value, a lot of money, a lot happening, and you want to get some reward from your efforts there. So how do we do that? And look, as always, we try to get the experts in to give you the best advice, so that when you are doing these things in your business, you get the best outcomes. So today we have Celia Wouters from Events Outsourced. And Celia's got a lot of experience in the events industry on all sides of the table. So over 16 years working in events agencies, in-house company events, managing events on the venue side, very well-rounded, and does a lot of events, and not just the big corporate events, but also assisting with online events, which is what a lot of us smaller business owners are involved in, roadshows, incentives, conventions, community events. Everything from the small guy running an event for his business to up to 1,000 people. That's a pretty broad range, a lot of experience there. And from having attended some of the events that Celia's been involved with, a very successful operator. So let's find out a bit more. Well, let's find out a lot more from Celia about how to run a successful event to promote your business. So Celia, welcome to the microphone.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Paul. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Now, there's a lot that can go on in running an event. You would have seen so many different ways that people use events to promote their business, or to grow their business, or to just increase their customer engagement. So what are the key ways that you've seen events being really well used by business owners?
Yeah, look, as you mentioned, there's a huge range of different types of events, and a huge range in sizes as well. So, an event doesn't have to be 1,000 people and cost you $1 million. In fact, some of the more effective events can be those more intimate events, or those more intimate feeling events. So it's all about taking yourself into the steps of your attendees and looking at what they're looking to get out of it. So, where are they? It's a little bit like marketing. Where are their pain points? What are they hoping to achieve when they walk out of your event? And putting yourself in their shoes, walking through the event and making sure that those things are being ticked off as you run through.
Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of different ways that we can, or lots to unpack there, really. So, making sure that we're answering a need that the customer or our potential customer has, and I think that's one of the first points where we get wrong. So, how do we actually improve that experience there?
Yeah, so you can do it in a number of different ways. So, obviously, getting out there, speaking to your customers before you look to even put on the event, because one of the biggest mistakes that we have when we see people make is they decide, okay, let's put on an event that's going to get us, a thousand new customers, but they go through all of the steps, often taking a lot longer than they should do to do those steps because they're not event trained, but they go through all the steps, they spend all the money, they get to the event, and people might turn up, people might not turn up, but at the end of the event, they have no way of actually recording whether or not the event was successful because they didn't stop. They didn't go back right to the start and put together a list of KPIs, I guess, for the event to say if X, Y, and Z is to happen, that's our outcome. That's what we're measuring. So, looking at putting in place those steps and what it is that you're looking to achieve, and also how you're going to measure that at the end before you get into the whole event planning process, because it's a beast of itself, but just making sure that you are looking at what needs your customers might have. So they might have, you might get the same questions off, a number of people. It's a bit like putting together a fax page, FAQ page. So finding out those questions that are being constantly asked, the issues that are being constantly had by your clients, or if you're looking at launching a new product or a new service, what they might be looking to experience or what problems they might be having with their existing service. And that's an even better option to have an in-person event because they get to touch and feel, especially if you're product-based, not so much service-based, but they get to touch and feel the product and get to know how it's used and how it's going to help them go forward in their everyday lives.
So it sounds to me that the first question we should be asking is, what's the purpose of the event? Not, I'd like to run this event. How do I do it?
Correct. Yeah. Because, running an event that has no purpose is, essentially a waste of money. You might get some, side, wins here and there from, a new customer might turn up, but that wasn't actually planned. That's just like you might have also gone down to the shops and run past someone, had a quick conversation with them, and there's a new customer. So it's not necessarily what you've put together in the event that created that. So putting that list of what you're looking to get out of it together at the start definitely helps, not only to look at what you're measuring at the end, but also to make those decisions along the way. Because as you mentioned earlier, events, there's one of those, how long is a piece of string? I could do an event that was a roadshow that just has the speakers on the stage. There's no theming. It's a small room, so there's no AV. It's just the venue hire. Or we could go to the opposite end, same amount of people, same content being delivered, but you could then add things like theming and AV, and it's a long list. So having those items at the start that you're looking at, this is what we're trying to achieve, can help you make those decisions a bit further along the line of, okay, well, the theming is going to cost an extra 10 grand. Is that theming actually going to help me to achieve these outcomes? And if the answer is no, then that's 10 grand that you can save.
So I think if we look at what's the outcome we're trying to achieve, and in terms of maybe how many customers or the value of those customers, it sort of gives us an idea about how much we should be spending or be prepared to spend on the event.
Absolutely. And, that's all, measuring the ROI of the event at the end. It might cost you a fortune. And as a small business, that could be, quite a hefty price tag for the event that you're looking to hold. But if the outcome is to get 3 clients at X amount and their lifetime value is whatever, once you do that math, then you can work out whether or not it is actually worthwhile putting on the event, or whether you need to look at a different avenue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. So two particular events that one that we ran here for our accounting an advisory business, and the other one where we participated in somebody else's event. So the one where we participated in another event, we paid to be involved as a sponsor and a speaker. But what we didn't really take into account was all the additional time involved in preparing for that event, preparing what we were going to be doing, how we were going to present, having to have a team attend the event so that they're there to answer questions, the time involved in preparing, the deadlines, the interruption to our business. And at the end of the day, the actual dollar cost we paid was, yeah, I guess probably only about 15% of our actual commitment to the event.
Yeah.
And I must say that, unfortunately, the result from that event was crickets. No outcome. So it was quite disappointing, but we learned a lot from it. But is that common, do you think?
Look, it really can be. I often say to clients, what we do is not rocket science. Like we're not engineers here. Essentially, we are following processes and we're booking things in. But it's just like anything. We have been doing this for myself for over 16 years, various different levels for my team. But there's just innate things that if you were asked what you do, you would give them a list of A, B, C, D, and E. But actually, at step B, there might be something that just occurs to you because you've been in the industry for so long, and you think, oh, a common one is with an outdoor events, have we got toilets? Everybody forgets the toilets. And it's not until you've been in the industry and you know what you're looking for, or you've done this whole beautiful event and you don't have a marquee and the face painter won't operate without a marquee. Different things like that you don't necessarily know that you don't know, if that makes sense. So and as you mentioned, the amount of time that goes into that from somebody that's not events trained within your organization can be exponential, and not to mention the time that they've lost on doing all of their normal tasks that they're supposed to be doing because they're spending 8 hours doing something that would take us 1 hour, and they don't know, again, what they don't know. So it can definitely blow out.
Yeah. And I guess being very clear about what your expectations are and what you need, that would help with that event planning process.
Yes, definitely. We do have, we give what's called a reverse brief. So we'll often have clients come to us and say, oh, we'd like to do an event on this date and we want it to be, a conference, and we'd like it to be here. And that's all the information that you get. So we put together what's called a reverse brief, where it goes back and it asks them all of those individual questions that people will often forget about, and gets them to thinking, and gets them also, on the point I touched on earlier, gets them thinking about those KPIs and what they're trying to achieve, so that we could get a better idea on what it is that would position itself as a successful event for them. Because what's a successful event for you might not be a successful event for somebody else. So it is all in that sort of that initial planning stage. So we find that the reverse briefs can be really helpful. And the way that we quote as well, we allow for flexibility. So if we quote you and it doesn't quite meet your budget, but you go, okay, actually I could look after, say, the registration, for example. I could look after the registration myself in-house. We've got the systems already, so we'll just take that section out. So it's really easy within our quotes to be able for the customer to just go, all right, no, we can't afford that, but if we took this and this back to do ourselves, then we can go ahead. So it's about that flexibility and working with what knowledge the client has and their staff have, and where we can fill in those gaps and provide the value.
And it seems like that even on those smaller events, using somebody like yourself would be quite beneficial, because I know that we've run small events, and in the past we've had issues with not marketing the event well, because we've been spent all our time on actually producing the content for it, because we are, it is not our main activity. It's not our main source of revenue running the events. It's an additional activity we're doing. So
correct.
I guess in a smaller case, there's still a value in getting someone like yourself to manage that event.
Yeah, absolutely. And just even if it's just, we actually offer a separate service where we'll come in and we'll actually train your staff on the basics of events. So that if you're looking at doing lots of little ones, but you can't afford to have somebody run it each time, we'll actually come in, spend a couple of hours with them, go through all the processes that you currently have, how those could be changed, and make it a little bit faster, make it a little bit easier for them to run. But yeah, definitely, either you spent all your time on the event, on the planning side, but you haven't marketed it, or you've spent all your time because something dropped in front of you that was actual client work that you had to do, and then the event suffered. So, and look, it can take, it's one of those things that it can just take one supplier not to do what they've been asked to do, for the whole thing to fall down.
Mm.
So it's a matter of having that time, and also just having those contacts and knowing who it is that will turn up on time, and will be there, will do exactly what they've been asked to do, and you won't have an issue with them. And you just don't have that information, or you don't have that relationship if you're not doing events all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So there's quite a few things you could get wrong, and you've already touched on the toilet issue, which having been to a lot of events, that everybody notices when there's not enough toilets. But look,
Absolutely.
what are some of the other things that people get really wrong when they're running events?
Food is always a big one. So either there's not enough, or the dietary requirements haven't been taken care of. And let me tell you, the dietary requirements of late are just getting longer and longer and longer. So making sure that that a lot of the menu is catering around those, I guess, more basic. So your gluten free and your vegetarian, that sort of thing, trying to encompass that into the regular menu so that there's not quite so many different items that are needing to be done. Timing of food as well, like the food's being delivered, but you haven't told the venue, or you haven't told the caterer that actually you're running half an hour behind, and so suddenly everyone's eating cold food, or that it's been out for too long, or that you haven't ordered enough, or that you've ordered too much. And too much in these days is as bad as ordering not enough, especially when everyone is so conscious of the cost of living, and all of the wastage that goes into things like events. You have to be really careful that everything that you're doing is sustainable. So ordering too much, like way over catering, is just as bad as under catering these days. Things like not cutting off the registrations at a certain point, or cutting them off too early, or not cutting them off in time. We've had one event where they didn't cut them off at all, and the night before the event, 1,000 new people registered for the event. So obviously it wasn't catered for that many people. So it's all those little things that kind of gather up and can create a huge mess. Parking is another one. How your attendees are actually going to get there. So we always say, when we're sort of briefing a client, is that you want to put yourself in the attendee's shoes and walk through it. So especially if you're doing a site inspection of a venue before the event, you pretend that you are an attendee. So you've gotten there, and you, being on the site inspection, have the staff member that's telling you that the event's up the stairs, around the corner, and to the left. That person on the day doesn't have that person standing there with them, telling them that it's all of those directions. So how are you going to convey that to the people on the day? So making sure that there's signage or staff or whatever you might need to show them where they need to be and when they need to be there. And it's often when you walk through those steps that you realize, oh, actually, so in my little brain, Celia has just gone to get some food, and she spilt some food, and there's no napkins. Did we forget about the napkins? Or I've gone to get a drink, and we've ordered drinks, and that's all well and good, but they're all hot because we didn't think about the esky and the ice is all melted. And it's all of those different things that sort of will pop up much more easily if you sit yourself in the event, in your head, of course, and walk it through, and then you can take into account all of those extra items. Or actually we've left them in the conference room for 3 hours and we haven't given them any breaks. So suddenly we've got 300, 400, 1,000 people that all need to pee at the same time, and there's 4 bathrooms. All of that sort of thing that you just, if you walk it through in your head, those sorts of things can start to occur to you.
Mm. So there's a lot of things that you can pick up on if you do, I guess, that walkthrough or the dress rehearsal, and certainly technology is one thing that can go wrong that we've
Yeah.
experienced. So we're both laughing because this is our second attempt at recording this episode. I made the mistake of trying some new technology with Celia the first time we recorded, and um, it failed miserably. But we did learn. Fortunately, we were
We
able
got
to
to
take that
practice. Look at
experience.
us.
It was a practice. We took that experience into another event that we were running. So that event, you'll be pleased to know, ran very, very well.
Wonderful.
And Celia's such a great person that she's agreed to have another go at the podcast. So very grateful for
I was
her.
much better the first time. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, yes. But there's a lot of things there. There are so many, and I guess that's the key. We tend to think that we can Google these things and learn, but as a business owner, you've already got so many different hats that you're trying to wear. Um, I think you're sort of creating some more difficulty by trying to add another one on. So this is a perfect example where you shouldn't try and self prepare. You shouldn't try and learn a new skill. Just involve somebody, and I think the whole event will run smoother, and you're more likely to actually achieve the outcomes that you set by engaging somebody who is experienced in that area.
Correct. I'm a big one for that. I've almost self-taught myself everything, but then when I look back at it and look at how much time I actually spent self-teaching myself these things, probably would have been better just to outsource it from the start. So yes, it's an easy barrel to fall down.
I was going to ask you what was one thing that you wish somebody had told you when you first started out in your business, but I guess you're saying
That it's not all champagne and parties. No, there's this misconception out there that events management is such a glamorous job, and it's champagnes and parties. But for example, we were with a client last week up in Cairns for their incentive event. Beck and I did a 69-hour week in 4 days. Just running from event to event to event to event to event. No high heels. Nobody that doesn't have feet that are numb goes to an event in high heels these days, especially if you're going to be doing the amount of running around that we often do when they're sort of spread out. But yeah, it's one of those common misconceptions that it's all parties and fun until you get on site and suddenly you're at a community event and it's pouring rain and you're trying to get the Easter Bunny out of his marquee with an umbrella, and you've put gumboots on him so he doesn't get dirty, and you look down at yourself at the end of this event and you are drenched from head to toe. You've got mud all the way up your legs, and you're sort of thinking, why did I, why?
right. Okay. So no Easter bunnies in winter, and make sure there's a supply of gumboots on hand.
Absolutely. There's no good Easter Bunny doesn't come without a set of gumboots.
Good. So Celia, what are some of the things that small business owners, particularly, we've talked about some of the bigger events, but what are some of the things that small business owners have done really successfully that you think would be easy for our listeners to replicate, maybe?
Yeah, look, I think some of the online events, it doesn't have to be, there are a huge number of different online event systems out there that cost anywhere from here to here. But, it doesn't have to be too complicated. It can be run via Zoom perfectly well. We did at one stage during COVID, I was doing 46 Zoom calls a week. For one particular client, and all of their events were run through Zoom. So it doesn't have to be hugely complicated or expensive. But it's just something that will set you apart from your competitors. So, even an event, like I mentioned at the start, they don't have to be big numbers for it to be successful. You can run some smaller, much more intimate events that actually will produce more for you as a business than a big event with 100 people in the room, because you actually get the chance to speak to each and every single one of the attendees. And whether they buy your product or they engage in your service is another story, but you get to have that conversation with them and find out their story, and any pain points that they might be having, and any reasons why, if they were saying know to your product or service, why that might be, and what you could then potentially look at doing in the future to overcome that hurdle. So having those, smaller, more intimate events can actually be really beneficial for the business.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that there's a trap there, thinking that we've got to go big all the time to be successful. So the smaller ones can be quite beneficial. We used to do a few events in our boardroom, and invited one speaker along, and he seemed to be a bit disappointed by the numbers of people that we had. And he said, "Well, are you disappointed with the turnout?" And I said, "Well, no, because it's a small number, but I only need one new client out of this to make it
Yes.
more than successful."
Yes.
And then when we looked at it, he said, "Well, yeah, you're right. For the cost that's involved, if you get one client, that's a huge return." So yeah,
And
so
there's a big difference, between bums on seats and qualified leads.
yes,
You could have 100 people that are just there because you offered them free coffee, or you could have 5 people that are there because they're actually interested and are potentially looking in your pipeline for your product or service. So yeah, it's definitely not a numbers game. Some of the speakers like it there to be more people, just because then they've got 100 chances rather than just 5. But honestly, I firmly believe that if you've got 5 qualified leads, they're much more powerful than 100 bums on seats.
So I think we're going back to one of your early points from our discussion today, is knowing what the purpose of the event is and what your outcomes are is quite essential before you even think about what kind of event to run.
Exactly. Absolutely. And how much to spend and what that budget's going to be, because, like I said, how long is a piece of string? You could spend $100,000 on an event for 5 people and look, it's going to be epic, but is it actually going to achieve what you're looking for? So.
Good. So lots to learn, lots about running events. My advice is don't do all the learning and failing yourself, but get in touch with somebody that does know, that can help you avoid all that failing, and make it a much more enjoyable experience of running events. So, Celia, how do our listeners get in contact with you if they want to find out more about running events or engage you to help them run a successful business event?
Yeah, absolutely. So jump onto our website, which is eventsoutsourced.com.au, or we are reachable through Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Just give us a call, or happy to catch up with you if you're ever at the Hills Business Chamber. Happy to catch up with you there.
Fantastic. So we'll put links to all those ways to contact Celia and to find out. And I know that if you subscribe to her newsletter, there's some great tips that come from that, which we've been enjoying, and it's sort of helped us not do some things that we were planning to do, because we soon became aware of some issues that we might have. So it was good to find that out. So we'll put all of those contact details for Celia in the show notes. And look, if you are new to the podcast and you're listening for the first time, it's great to have you here. But you can find all our past episodes and show notes and resources available on our website, which is www.thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. And you can subscribe and listen to the podcast in any of the major and all the minor podcast applications that are available these days. And if you prefer the visual option, we now are available on YouTube, and you can follow us there. Just look for The Business Behind Your Business on YouTube, and you'll be able to see us all in our visual glory. So somebody once told me that I had a great face for radio. So yeah,
Absolutely.
anyway.
No, it's just, it's one of those things, really. The camera adds £100, £1,000, whatever it is.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Celia, for agreeing to come back to the podcast after our first
Thanks
attempt.
for having me.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing with us some insight into running events, and not just what we could avoid or to make them run better, but getting us to focus on the purpose of the event and how it's actually going to help our business before we actually go down the track of organising and spending money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Celia, and look forward to you joining us on another episode of The Business Behind Your Business.
Wonderful. Thanks, Paul.